Hello, Pastor Jacob May, Christ Lutheran Church in Gordonville, Missouri. I hope everyone is having a great week. I had a wonderful day today. I was able to share a message with Saxony Lutheran High School here in Southeast Missouri. Great experience. We actually were reading from Joshua chapter 24. Some of you might have heard that recently. In fact, I think it was a couple weeks ago it appeared in our lectionary. Maybe your pastor preached on it. I know I did. The bulk of the text goes something like this, where Joshua is talking to the people and he says, choose this day whom you're going to serve, whether it be the God of the Amorites or the gods that your father served on the other side of the river. But as for me and my household, we will choose the Lord. And think about choices that we make. We are filled with a lot of choices, aren't we? Just throughout the day, when you get up in the morning. In fact, the first choice happens probably before you even get up. Do you hit that alarm clock or do you hit the snooze button? Or do you risk it? Do you turn it off and maybe risk falling back asleep? I know that's what I tend to do sometimes. But what are you going to eat? What are you going to drink? What are you going to wear? Who are you going to talk to? Who are you going to call? All the choices that we make. And you go to a restaurant and you look at a menu. It's just filled with all kinds of options and sides and things like that. And when we look at this text, it might almost seem like what Joshua is doing is giving the people a genuine choice. Who are you going to choose? But that's not really the context. That's not really what Joshua is up to. Joshua is all too familiar with what Israel has done in the past. Time and time again, what do we see? They're grumbling and complaining because God just doesn't give them enough. And they have just such a hard time trusting in Him, believing that He is going to take care of them, even though He's the one that carries them forth from Egypt. They watch as they are leaving Egypt, as the waters kind of go back over the Egyptians, showing that God's rescuing them. But they still doubt it. They still don't fully grasp it. Even though He gives them the manna and turns the water that was bitter into something that's sweet and drinkable. But they just doubt all along the way. It gets to the point where God gives them the Ten Commandments, right? This is for them so they can learn how to live and how they're supposed to follow God's law. You can see a video from a couple weeks ago if you want to relook at some of that. But it's there as a gift. And they say, you know what? We're going to do it. And the next thing you know, what happens when Moses goes up on the mountain? Well, they start to worship a golden calf. Kind of shows they don't have a lot of trust for God and His plan. And we see a little bit of that right before they go into the promised land, where God says, look, here it is, it's all for you. And what do they say? Nope, the people in there are just too tall, they're too big, we don't trust you, we're not going to go in. God says, fine, it's not yours. The people realize they made a mistake. They go into the land, even though God says, nope, I wouldn't do it now. And they lost a big battle and lost a lot of people. This would all lead to some more wilderness wandering. So you see that Israel isn't very good at following God. Of course, as I'm thinking about this, maybe that means Israel should be more like us, right? That's what I kind of sheepishly told the kids today. They need to be more like us because, we're the kind of people that follow God's rules and laws all the time, right? We listen to Joshua's words here. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And we say that can apply to us. That's our motto for everyday living, right? I'm sure all of you listening in, you kind of beat your chest when you get up in the morning. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. You probably say that with your family around devotion times in the morning on your way to work. You don't yell or scream at any of the other drivers. You just simply talk about how you and your household serve the Lord. You peacefully drive to work. My guess is you walk up to your boss and you say, you know what, I respect you and I honor you. You're the authority that God has placed in my life. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Do you do that? Do you berate the officials when you go to a sporting event? Do you spend time with your families? Do you spend more time on your phone or in front of the TV? Are you really serving the Lord? That's the reality of it, right? It's not that Israel needs to be more like us. We are already a lot like Israel. So when you look at what Joshua is saying, it kind of makes you feel bad, doesn't it? As for me and my house, we will choose to serve the Lord, but we don't. A lot of times it's, as for me and my house, we will choose, me. We choose our own wants, what we want to do, what matters most to me, myself. But that's what makes grace so, I guess, amazing, for a lack of a better word, is that Israel didn't choose God. God chose Israel. God chose to make a covenant with Abraham. Abraham didn't know God. God called Moses. You are going to go talk to Pharaoh. God called the Israelites from Egypt. He gave them the land. Even though they kept breaking the covenant, God was going to continue to keep it over and over again. Even though he knew full well that we were going to break the covenant, God still created us because that's how much he loved us and wanted to share his love with us. He would still number the hairs on our heads and wouldn't let any hair fall down from our head apart from his knowledge. How do we know that? Because that's what Jesus is all about. Coming in the flesh. God chooses this. God chooses for Jesus to dwell with people that others wouldn't want to dwell with. Sinners, tax collectors, people that couldn't hear or see, right? I mean, these are the kinds of people that in that day others would look at and say, you know what, it's their sinfulness that led them to be this way, which is complete baloney. But Jesus hung out with them. Why? Because he loved them. That's the amazing thing about it. When we look at Jesus, we see that he loves sinners. He wants to redeem them. He loves you. That's why God chooses the ultimate sacrifice. He chooses to send Jesus to the cross, to lower his head and die. Because God chooses to have you as part of the family. I mean, that's just absolutely amazing. That is grace-filled. So when we hear that news, it's not that we get to somehow choose God by our own good works, that we just have that knowledge. No, it's not really like that. The only reason why we're able to choose any aspect of following God is because he first chose us. The graciousness and the mercy of his love compels us to do the things of God. We are so thankful for that, aren't we? So I might not do it perfectly, but by the grace of God and through his Spirit, we will choose to serve the Lord, right, this day? Because after all, just like what Joshua is alluding to, who else would we serve? So you, choose this day whom you are going to serve. Is it going to be the God of the Amorites? Is it going to be the gods that the forefathers served on the other side of the river? Is it going to be the gods of our day? The things that we shouldn't be paying attention to that maybe begin to take priority. The things that are ungodly that seem somewhat intriguing. I don't know about you, but as for me and my household, by God's grace, we will choose to serve the Lord. God's peace to you and to your household.